What is good, everyone? Welcome into this edition of the Views from the 573 podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. And on this edition of the show, we are mock drafting. Yes, we are. We are doing a post-free agency mock draft. Free agency has kind of simmered down here in the last few days. So we are going to be diving into mock draft season with a post-free agency 2025 NFL mock draft. We already know a couple teams that are kind of, they're kind of leaning towards one direction. Some are wide open with where they could go. You also got the best player available over the team need argument. There's going to be a couple of scenarios like that in this mock especially. I'm already looking at the top, and there's already a couple that are catching my eye right now as far as that's concerned. So we're going to be diving deep into this mock, and I hope you guys are ready to get into mock draft season. I'm pretty sure some that are listening have already dived deep into this and dived into these prospects. So we're going to be doing that. If you haven't yet, be sure to go check us out on all podcasting platforms, on YouTube. You can check out the last show that Matt and I were able to do, where we were able to talk about the free agency period and talk about some of the more notable moves that happened, including some that affected how I'm going to kind of go around with this mock on this edition of the show. So if you haven't yet, be sure to go check that out. There's an audio and video version out there for you. So if you want to take a listen to either one or watch the video version on YouTube, go right ahead. And we'll be doing some more of these, of course, as we get closer to the draft. I'm pretty sure Matt and I, we're going to be doing a mock as we do every year and see where we're kind of leaning towards as we get closer to the draft. Lots of things can change here. As of right now, we're about a little over a month away. So without further ado, let's get right on into it, and let's go to PFF. That's where we're going to be kind of using on this edition of our mock drafts. So let's get on into it, and let's talk about the mock draft. Of course, the Titans are picking at number 1. That's kind of big for me. I got my team picking number 1 here. So we're going to have to see where they're going. As free agency happened, I kind of got an idea of where they're leaning towards just by what the moves they made and getting Dan Moore and in getting Kevin Zeitler and really moving J.C. Latham to that right side. So I already kind of get a sense of where they're going here. And this one is going to be, I think, pretty easy. I'm going with Cam Ward here as the Titans' first pick here. It makes sense with the moves. And even now, I think I've read that there's still a possibility of them trading down, which I felt like before these moves, I felt like it's 50-50. But now after these moves have been made, I think it's more 70-30, 75-25, to be honest with you, that they're going with the quarterback. It feels like that's the option here. Unless Cleveland or the Giants just, blows them away with an offer that they can't pass up, then I think the Titans are going to stick right where they're at. And, of course, we'll have to see where those other teams land. The Giants are talking about Russ and Aaron Rodgers. And then you got the Browns. Could they be a Kirk Cousins team? Should Atlanta move off of him? That remains to be seen. But as of now, neither of those moves have happened for either team. And we're not doing trades. So Cam Ward here is going number 1. I think he set himself apart over Shadeur. I think it's been pretty clear over the last couple weeks throughout the process that it's happened. And that if there's a definite QB1 in this draft, it is Cam Ward. So I'm going with Cam Ward here with the first overall pick for the Titans. Now at number 2. Again, we don't know about where the Browns could be leaning towards. Could they be a Kirk Cousins team? Right now, Deshaun is, out, with the Achilles injury. You got Kenny Pickett in there. And, we're not going to base off of this off of assumptions that they get Kirk because we don't know. Now, if they go out and get Kirk here in about a month before when we do our final mock, then obviously things are going to change a little bit as to where we're kind of mocking them. So as far as this move, as far as this particular pick, I'm wondering, would they go with Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter here? Because, and listen, Travis Hunter could offer them that playmaker scenario on corner and wide receiver. But you also had Abdul Carter. I know you just paid Myles Garrett. But you know what? I kind of like the idea of drafting Abdul Carter. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draft Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns. And again, this guy is he's the best edge in this draft by far. I know the Micah Parsons comparisons are probably out there. They're pretty obvious, but just by how he plays, you can tell that there's a lot of Micah Parsons to his game. So I'm going with not Micah. There we go. Abdul Carter there at number 2. Number 3, the New York Giants. I feel they are a Shadeur Sanders team if they don't get a quarterback here. So I am going to go with Shadeur Sanders here as the number 3 overall pick in this draft. And him suiting up for the Giants, it feels pretty obvious right there. Next up, this is a team that I'm kind of going into, do you go with best player available or do you go with team need? Because right now, the Patriots, they need a tackle. They need a left tackle in the worst way possible. But you also see Travis Hunter up there on the board. If he's up there on the board at 4, I think you say forget team need. I think you go best player available. And yeah, you just signed Carlton Davis, but Carlton Davis is a little bit older, so that would give Travis a lot more snaps at the wide receiver position in the Patriots system, and that would give Drake May a little bit of help there. And I think that's what this draft is going to be centered on, is giving Drake May the most help that you can. You've already addressed the defensive side, but with Hunter, he's that dual threat. Could play some corner, could play some wide receiver, and it depends on who drafts him. But I think in this scenario, he plays more wide receiver. He gets some snaps at corner, but he plays more wide receiver. Gives Drake May an explosive playmaker out there. They drafted 2 receivers last year in Javon Baker and Jalen Polk. Neither really played. I think the only big-time threat receiver was Pop Douglas. And then you had Hunter Henry. So, you need some help. I am going with Travis Hunter there to the New England Patriots. I'm sure Pats fans would be happy to get a guy that is really rare in this day and age, playing both ways. Next up, going to Jacksonville. This one I've seen in a lot of mocks. I'm going with this one too. I'm going with Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. Came in a little bit undersized compared to what Michigan had on their roster, but it seems like the move for the Jags in this offseason is building through the trenches. They've already done it on offense, getting Patrick McCarry in there to help out there. I think they go and address the defensive line. You add him to Josh Allen Hines and Trayvon Walker. You add Mason Graham to that front 4 and give Liam Cohen some help on the defensive side of the ball here in his first season. Now, they could go and add another lineman, Membu or Campbell, or, if somebody like Carter or Hunter falls, then I could see them going there. But Mason Graham, I had them going to Jacksonville. Number 6. And this is one I've seen in recent days. There's been a lot of smoke about this one, and that is Ashton Janey going 6 to the Las Vegas Raiders. Listen, it's not a question that think about with the Raiders running game last year. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Couldn't get anything. The offensive line is solid enough where I think if you get a decent running back in there, it improves. Now, yes, this is a deep running back class, but Janey is the true RB1 in this class. And I think it fits with what the Raiders would want to do. I think, you add him along with Jacoby Myers, with Brock Bowers. You give Geno a good running back there to hand the ball off to. I think that can really help. I think a wide receiver could be in play here. Ted McMillan could definitely be in play. I think that's where I'm eyeing pick 6. Is like it's got to be an offensive playmaker for the Raiders. And I'm going to have it be Ashton Janey, the running back out of Boise State. And I think he can really help boost this Raiders running game up and gives them another weapon on offense after they just took Brock Bowers a year ago. So Janey, number 6 to the Raiders. Next up, the New York Jets at number 7. This one I'm really am kind of, up in the air on this one. Because I think they could use somebody else besides, Garrett Wilson as a pass catcher to help out Justin Fields. I also think they could, if Mason Graham was here, they could take him. But also, you got both the tackles available. I think you go here and get somebody at right tackle. And I think if that's the case, you go with the more natural right tackle, and that is Armand Membu. This guy has seen his stock risen a whole lot here. He can play inside or out. He played right tackle at Mizzou. I think you add him alongside Fashanu, Elijah Vera Tucker. And if what me and Matt talked about is true with adding Justin Fields and saying, hey, you need to go to really unleash him and build up, that running game, offensive line is the way to do it. And so I think you get Membu in there, slot him in at right tackle, not only gives Fields some protection in the pass game, but also helps him out in the run game, helps out Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. So give me Membu there. I think, again, either of those tackles, they could go there. McMillan, they could go there. Tyler Warren, I think they could go there. But I think Membu right now makes sense to me. Now at number 8, speaking of McMillan, I have him going here. The Panthers have done a whole lot in this offseason so far to add to the defensive side of the ball. I think they still could, but you need a weapon for Bryce. And what better way to get a guy that some have called a Drake London type of clone here with the way he plays and his physical skill set. And McMillan, a guy that just produced year after year with Arizona, is 6'4", 213, 215. Big target for Bryce Young. And after the way Bryce played last year, you got a sense of where he's at and got a sense of like, okay, he is not a lost cause. Let's go and help him out. I think you go and add a guy like McMillan and add him to your wide receiver room and give Bryce some help. Give him a big target that he can just throw it to and say, hey, go and get it. And what better way to get that than a guy that consistently produced in college year after year with the Wildcats. So give me Ted McMillan at number 8 to Carolina. Now, number 9. I think the Saints can go in a lot of different ways here. I think they could go edge. I think they can go tackle. I think they could go tight end with Tyler Warren. I think here at number 9, it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be an offensive player. You got to consider the coach here, Kellen Moore. I think, now if McMillan's on the board here, I think they add him up and pair him with Olave. But I think they can do the same here by adding Tyler Warren from Penn State. Just seeing him play all around the field at Penn State, it does give you some reminders of Taysom Hill, but this guy is a more souped up and a better Taysom Hill. If you're going to use him all over the place. This guy is a true tight end 1 compared to Taysom Hill. This guy was absolutely incredible at Penn State. And you add him to this group, I think Kellen Moore's going to find a lot of different packages that he can put him in and can really have a lot of fun with those packages and placing him at running back, inline tight end, vertical, outside, I think he can have a lot of fun with this guy. So I'm going to go with Tyler Warren here to the Saints at number 9. And for the Bears, I think they can go in a lot of different directions here as well. I think as we discussed on the free agency pod, doing what they've done, I think opens them up in so many different ways. If Janey was here, I think they could go Janey. If, Membu was here, they could go Membu. And Will Campbell's still on the board here. He is still on the board. And there's some edge rushers here that they could definitely go with as well. I think a guy like Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams, they can make a whole lot of sense here and just continue to add along the trenches and really help out. I also think you got Campbell here falling to number 10. Braxton Jones is on the last year of his deal. He's been a solid tackle here. But maybe the Bears are in a situation next year where they don't want to pay him. And yeah, sure, that is a next year decision. But I think if you don't feel like Braxton Jones is your number one guy, maybe Campbell makes a lot of sense here. However, I think I'm going to go and stick with the edge department, and I think I'm going to give them Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. A guy that didn't produce a whole lot of, he didn't have a lot of sack numbers, but is a guy that blew up the combine, I think can come in. And listen, they added a bunch on the line already. You add a guy like him, sure, you can give him a little bit of time to develop, but this guy was a freak at the combine, just absolutely amazing at his size, what he was able to do. I think the Bears, listen, you need to add up in the trenches. They've done that already, and sure, this move, with what they've done, can open them up to a lot of different moves, but I think you add another edge and get a guy that 5 years down the road, during his rookie contract, could, if he can capitalize and really start to develop, can really be a steal here at number 10. Now at number 11, with the San Francisco 49ers, a team that has lost a whole lot this offseason, and they need to go and replenish. Whether that's on the edges, whether it's defensive line as a whole, offensive line. I think this is where I'm going to have the Will Campbell slide stop here. And listen, you can play him anywhere. If you want to play him at right tackle, fine. You want to play him inside, fine. The 49ers just need help, on anywhere on the offensive line. They need a bit of a talent boost. And listen, Trent Williams isn't going to play forever. So why not get a guy that could be a potential replacement in Will Campbell from LSU, add him to your system. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and they got to be upset that, that Janey didn't fall all the way down to number 12. And with the Cowboys here, they could use a running back. They need another playmaker alongside CeeDee Lamb. They could use some more help among the defensive line. They have made a couple moves there, but I still think they need some help there. I'll tell you what, they could also use some help at corner too, alongside Trayvon Diggs. They just lost Jordan Lewis. So I think with what I'm going to do here, they could also use some offensive line help too. I think, you know what, I'm going to give them Michael Williams. I think you just lost to Marcus Lawrence. I think they just signed Dante Fowler back. Dante Fowler, okay, fine. I think you get some edge help. You add him alongside Parsons, who is still not signed yet. We talked a little bit about that on the pod. He's still not signed yet, and Myles Garrett just got paid big-time money. So what do you want to do here? So I think you go Michael Williams here if you're the Cowboys. Add to your defensive line room. Get a guy that can really help out. Go to that Georgia pipeline. It seemed to have worked out well for, the Eagles. Go to that Georgia defensive player pipeline. I think you go and add him to your system. So, number 13. Let's go to South Beach. Let's go to Miami. They could be a team that could use some offensive line help as well. and they could use some defensive line help. They could use another corner here. I'll tell you what, I think they go corner. I think you go corner here. It's a toss up between Jade Barron, who's a little bit not as big as Will Johnson, but I think with what he did in the SEC last year at corner, I think you need to add somebody to your room. I'll add somebody alongside Jalen Ramsey. I mean, your secondary's already taken a bit of a hit. But you know what? I'll tell you what. I'm also thinking, I just thought of the Javon Holland situation. Thought, man, they could use some help at safety. You know what? I'm going to have them drag Nick Emanori, who absolutely blew up the combine at his size. They need some safety help. So they do go defensive back here, but not corner. I got Emanori going to the Dolphins. A team that could have used secondary help, but addressed it, I think, pretty well in this offseason. Getting Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum. I think the Colts here, they could go in a different direction here than, before all the offseason stuff went down. I think they could go Colston Loveland here at number 14. Maybe that's a little bit too rich. I feel like they could go Tyler Booker here. Get some interior help. But I think I'm going to go Colston Loveland here. I think if you want to get one of these tight ends, you got to go and grab them. And Loveland is a guy that I feel like is not a inline type of guy, but you can help put out there. And I think this could be a really big time target where you can really help Anthony Richardson. Dare I say, help out Daniel Jones. I think this is the type of move that you can help out now. Now that you address the needs in your secondary room, you can go and address this or, interior line. Again, I think Tyler Booker could be a pick here. But I have Loveland going 14 to the Colts. Next up, we go to Atlanta. And I feel like we do this every year. We give them a pass rusher. And this year is no different. They need some help. I forget who they just signed, but they need some help. And I'm going to give them Jihad Campbell, a guy that I think can play linebacker but can also get after it in the pass rush game. They could go and draft Donovan Regard. I know I'm just butchering that, but the edge rusher out of Boston College, and then also Jalen Walker, I think, could be another guy that they could target. But I'm going to give them Jihad Campbell, a guy that can play inside linebacker, outside linebacker. Just give them some help, out there on that defense, a guy that can get after it. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals I have on the board here, and I think they do go edge rusher here. I'm going to have them go and take, they did just sign Josh Sweat. Oh, but wait. You know what? Scratch that. I think, you add Josh Sweat. Sure, you could add somebody else in that room. I think you address your cornerback room. I'm going Will Johnson here. I think his slide stops here. A guy that was a projected top 10 pick, coming into the season, but has fallen off a little bit here. I have him going 16. I think you address that cornerback room. They got some young guys in there, but I think if you're Jonathan Gannon, you need to address it. Get somebody in there now, and maybe you can add edge rusher later. Now for the Bengals, you don't know what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson. You need to get an edge rusher in there. I'm going Mike Green from Marshall, a guy that has seen his stock risen a whole lot throughout this process, throughout the season, as well as now found himself into first-round talk, and at this rate, a top 20 pick. So, Bengals, they've already addressed defensive tackle a couple times, but again, and you just lost Sam Hubbard, who retired. And you're still waiting on Miles Murphy. You don't know what's happening with Hendrickson. I think you get somebody on defense here. I feel like corner could be a need here too that you can go and address. Next up, we got Seattle, a team that has gone through has been talked about a lot here. Early on, couple of needs you see right away are receiver and interior offensive line. They absolutely need to go with one of those two in this draft here early on, and they got the picks to do it. Is it too early for wide receiver 2 to go off the board? You got Luther Burden here. You got Matthew Golden. Oh, who else? You got Emeka Buka. Could you go with one of them there, or could you go with Tyler Booker? Now, the last time I checked, so Seattle, they did sign Cooper Kupp. So that's one thing that has changed. So maybe wide receiver isn't as much of a need now. So maybe they do go interior offensive line. And I think if that's the case, they go with Tyler Booker here, the guard out of Alabama. He did have the one of the best quotes of the combine. Was like him taking that love of football away from people. So I think if you're one of those teams, you like, man, we need interior offensive lineman. You want a guy like that on your team, with that type of attitude. So I had them going with Tyler Booker here to help out with the interior of the offensive line because it sorely needs it. Next up, we got Tampa Bay, a team that signed Hassan Reddick to help boost up their pass rush. I think they still need to boost it up a little bit, and this is where I'm going to have Jalen Walker go, who kind of fits like Hassan Reddick, kind of an undersized type of guy here with just, kind of like their size. I believe Walker's like only like 6'1", 6'2", 245, so kind of a bit of an undersized pass rusher, but I think you get him in there, help him out, learn from Reddick, and just get some pass rush help. That's what they need. They could also go with Shadeur Barron here too, but I don't have them going there. So give me Jalen Walker to Tampa Bay. Next up, Denver. I think they need to add another piece to this room on offense. Get somebody for Bo Nix to help out in the running back room, wide receiver room. I think I'm going to have them go with a guy that's seen his stock risen a little bit here, Matthew Golden, wide receiver 2. I think this guy is quick. He's shifty. He can go vertical. You get him involved in the quick passing game, I think, with Bo Nix. Sean Payton is going to know what to do with him. I think you put him in there. And listen, Cortland Sutton, he's really good, but he's 29, 30 years old. You need to add some help there in that room. Spend a first-round pick on it. Next up, the Steelers, who don't have a quarterback. So it's like, I wonder where the Steelers are going to go, But, we'll have to see where they go as far as quarterbacks. I don't know if it's going to be Aaron Rodgers or, honestly, do they even entertain a Russell Wilson reunion? That's where we're at because the options are slim right now for the Steelers. So if you're taking a look at what the Steelers need, I think, running back here could be an option. I think, getting some help on the back end could help. Getting some help up front could help. I am going to go, let's see, where am I going to go with this pick? They don't need a wide receiver. I still think in the end they will trade George Pickens, in which case you're going to need another receiver. But we're not going to play what ifs here. We're just going to live in right now. If that's the case, I think I am going to give them Jahdae Barron here. I think you get somebody across from Joey Porter Jr. This is the guy you're going to get. I think you add him alongside those two guys, and you're like, okay, this is our cornerback duo. Try to stop us, opposing offenses. So give me Jahdae Barron here to Pittsburgh. Next up, we're going to the Chargers. I feel like this could have been a Tyler Booker team, but they did just sign Mekhi Becton. So now talk about a right side. Mekhi Becton and Joe Alt. We talked about the possibility before they signed Zeitler. If, the Titans signed Becton, go alongside Latham, you talk about a big, right side of the offensive line. That's the case here with the Chargers. Those are some big dudes on that right side. So I imagine Chargers are going to be looking at, running back here later on to complement Najee. Add somebody there because Najee's only a 1 year deal. So with Najee Harris there, I don't think they go running back here. They could go tight end here. I think wide receiver could be a possibility here. Defensive line, I think, is a possibility too. And that's where I think I'm going to go. I think they go back to Michigan and they get Kenneth Grant. And those guys, they know him pretty well. J.C. Minner knows him pretty well. They add him up front and really plug up the run game and stopping teams up front and really helping out that defensive line. So give me Kenneth Grant, former Michigan man, going to the Chargers, playing for another Michigan man, and Jim Harbaugh. Next up, we got the Green Bay Packers here, who I think if one of those corners fell, they could go with him here. But I think with that off the board, you go somewhere else. Now, could you go offensive line? Sure. Could you go edge? Sure. I think with how the board has fallen here, you go edge. And I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. Donovan Ezuraku. I feel like I butchered it still, but this guy has produced really well here this past season. Is a guy that in 2024, 14 sacks. He was absolutely incredible last year, getting after the quarterback. 6'2", 247. He's only 21 right now, so he's still a young guy. I think you add him to your edge rush room. Van Ness still hasn't hit. I think you add somebody there to really help bolster your defense and get a guy that can get after the quarterback and be a true edge rusher there. So I have him going there to Green Bay. Next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings on the board, and I feel like they could go on defense here. I feel like defensive line, and I feel like safety could be for me, the obvious answers they could go here. I have them going with defensive line. Well, I'm trying to think because they did just sign Javon Hargrave. They did just sign Jonathan Allen. I'm going to scratch that. I am going to give them Malachi Starks here. They did just lose Cam Bynum. I think you add another safety to that room alongside Harrison Smith, who's not getting any younger and who's still playing. So I think you go and add Malachi Starks and you add a proven safety to your room. And now we go to Houston, and this one is pretty obvious. Josh Simmons on the board, left tackle. Yes, he was hurt a little bit last year, but also Kelvin Banks is too. I'm going to go Kelvin Banks here. A guy that played left tackle in the SEC, and it's around 6'4", a shorter on the side of a left tackle, but as a guy that played in the SEC at left tackle for 3 straight years, was really good. They need a left tackle in the worst way. It's pretty much telegraphed. They telegraphed their plans here, and if they don't get one here, again, we're not doing trades, but I think they would trade up to secure their guy. Next up, we're going to the Rams here. And I'll tell you what, the Rams, they don't need another wide receiver. Tackle, they're fine. Up front, I think they're fine. I think it's really just the back end of their defense that could use some help. Or, you know what? I know what to do. Greg Zabel out of North Dakota State as a guy that feels like it's going to be more on the interior side and play at guard or center. I think they go with him here. He has risen up the boards here pretty well here in this process. Is a guy that had a really good grade coming out of this past season. Didn't give up a whole lot of sacks. And is a guy that's 6'6", 305. I think you plug him inside and you give Matt Stafford some protection to throw to Puka, to throw to Devontae, and get that run game going with Kyron Williams. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens on the clock here. And they could go in a couple different ways here too. They could go offensive line here too, get some help. or they can go defense. I feel like, for Baltimore, I feel like it's best player available here, as it seems like they always do. I think for them, I'm going to give them Nick Scruton, or I think that's it, from Texas A&M, who transferred in from Purdue, had a really good season at Purdue. Last year, though, only had 4 sacks compared to 8, so cut in half from last year. But as a guy that is a big edge rusher, I think you can fit him inside and out. So I feel like, if you're or the defensive coordinator, you can really do some fun stuff with him inside and out. Next up, we're going to Detroit. And I'm going with a defensive lineman here. I think they take Derek Harmon, who's got some Michigan State ties, though. This guy is a big defensive tackle who's 6'5", 310, had 5 sacks last year for the Oregon Ducks, was constantly getting in the backfield and wrecking havoc. I think, if you're the Lions, you need some help on the interior. It's a little bit different from what you have already. Arun Enrique is coming back. Ali McNeil, you guys coming back. I think this guy can really help boost up your defensive tackle room to be specific, and gets you a big pass rusher there at defensive tackle to help out with Aiden Hutchinson and that group. So Harmon, I have going to the Lions at 28. Next up, we got the Washington Commanders. And I think, they added Debo, they added Laramie Tunsil. I feel like they could go and add some more to their defense. And I feel like this is where the run stops for James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Now, there's, reported character concerns. I don't know what those are all about. But I think if you're Washington, I think you take a chance on him. Has tremendous upside. As a guy that is an athletic freak of a defensive end. 8 sacks last year, down from 13 the previous year, but can get after it. He had an explosive combine too. So I'm going with James Pierce Jr. at Washington, 29. And then we're at 30 with the Buffalo Bills. And this is a team that I think is probably going to go defense if I had to guess. And I feel like going to the cornerback room is where they go. I think you go with a guy like Maxwell Harrison, who had one of the fastest 40 times in the combine for a corner. Is a guy that was a ball hawk a year ago. Wasn't so much last year. And didn't play. He only played in 7 games last year. But is a guy I think you can add him to your cornerback room. 6'1", 186. I think you add him in there. A guy that can be a playmaker back there. They need some help there. They need some young talent. They just traded Kyer Elam, a former first-round pick. I think you go and add him to your cornerback room. The Chiefs, I'll tell you what, it is tempting here. I think if you're the Chiefs, you look at how this board has fallen. You're like, okay, we got Luther Burden, we got Josh Simmons, Emeka Ibuka, Darius Alexander, Walter Nolan, Josh Carley. I mean, I think they signed Jalen Moore to be their left tackle, but you see Josh Simmons on there. That is hard to pass up. But I also think if you're Kansas City, you see those wide receivers like, man, that's kind of hard to pass up. But also, I think this, and this is where I'm going to lean in, and I'm going to have them go and take Walter Nolan. I think you need somebody else alongside Chris Jones on the interior. And also, if you're just moving him around, you're going to need some help on the interior. Get a guy that in his last 2 seasons, 13 combined sacks, got after it last year at Ole Miss, and can add some size up front. I think you get a guy that can really thrive in a pass rush type of environment like in Steve Spagnuolo's environment, I have Walter Nolan going to the Chiefs. But there's a lot on that board that it's going to be hard to pass up. And then here for the defending champs, Philadelphia Eagles. They don't need a wide receiver, so I think they're good there. I think they could go and add some more help up front because they did lose some guys here in this free agency period. And I think I am going to go with Darius Alexander here and say that he goes to Philly. He's seen his name risen up a whole lot in this process as well. So I think you lose Milton Williams. I think you add somebody else to that room, and listen, we saw last year. It didn't hurt for Philly to have a good rotation there, and guys contribute down the line. So I think that is where I'm going to go with Darius Alexander to the Philadelphia Eagles, and that means guys like Simmons, Emeka, Ibuka, Luther Burden, Connerly, those guys would still be on the board at the top of round 2. And you also got Jackson Dart available, who would be the next quarterback up. So it would be an interesting round 2. So that's where we're going with this mock. So everybody, that was a whole lot of fun. First mock draft in the books for this offseason, and we'll be doing that again here shortly here with the draft a little over a month away. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, as always, check us out where you guys get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube, and be sure to go like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And keep up with the latest on that channel with shorts and videos coming out here as we get closer to the draft. So that's all I have for you all on this edition of the show. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys soon.